So the topic that we are going to discuss now is Angular services. So Angular service, what is this? What do you mean by the service in the sense? It's nothing but any sort of task or some sort of business logic. If I want to share the business logic between the components of Angular application, then you need to think about the services. For instance, if you take this image, let me assume that this is going to be your root component. So this root component has child component, and in that in turn it's having its own child component. If I'm having some common logic, okay, this is a common logic, this common logic needs to be shared between all the components, then we need to think about a concept called services. Okay, so services means any sort of task or a business logic which needs to be shared across the Angular component, then you need to think about service. So services are singleton. Singleton means like only one instance will be created that needs to be shared among the multiple instances. So services in Angular, they are all singleton class or singleton object. Services are lazy loaded. Lazy loaded means until unless you call it, even though it is there, it won't be eagerly executed. You need to give a call. You need to call it, then only it will be executed. Even though it is already available, it won't be get executed on its own. You need to give a call, then only it can be loaded. Another important point is services can be injected. So these are the three important points. They are, first, services are lazy loaded, services are singleton, services can be injected. Injected means in Angular we have a inbuilt feature called dependency injection. So Angular by default it is having dependency injection feature. So if I create a service, that service can be easily injected. So these are all the important things you need to understand before moving into the service part. So to start with the services, I'm just going to come up with a very basic thing. Okay, like I'm just going to create a new folder here in my Angular application. Inside the source, I'm just creating a new folder called services. In the services folder, I'm just creating a new file called calculator.service.ts. Okay, let me say calculator.service.ts. So this calculator.service.ts, just it's going to be a class. So as usual, we are going to export it. Export the class called calculator service. And this calculator class is going to have two methods. Sorry for not maintaining the naming convention. So to speed up the process, I'm typing A and B, but give a proper variable names. So it's just going to return A plus B, and we have multiply. I'm having some common business logic. This business logic I'm planning to share throughout the application, any components. Okay, that can be easily done. Now I have just created a class. It is not a service. Okay, just a class. So if I want to make use of this in my app component.ts, let I create a constructor. In the constructor, I'm just going to create a variable of calculator service class. So var calc service or calc object, which is of calculator type. Okay, no need to provide var. Then you can say this dot calc obj equal to new calculator service. So as soon as you type this, it would have resolved. When you press enter, it will automatically resolve. So we created the object. Then I'm just calling this dot calc obj dot add. I can call this add, and it's going to return addition of two numbers. So console.log, save it. So when I run this program in your console screen, look at that, it just print 10. But The problem is right now I'm not using this as a service. Just a class has been created and I'm just calling that class. But I want to use this as a service. So if I want to use this as a service, first I need to make this as a service. Okay, how to create this as a service means this particular stuff. Okay, if it is a service, it should be injectable. We should not create the instance that the way we have done. See here, if you look at this, I have created the object, but it should not be like that. We need to inject it and get that object. So in order to do that, first thing we are supposed to do is we need to make this particular class as an injectable class. How? With the help of injectable decorator with the import statement at Angular/core. From there, pick up the injectable decorator. Okay, so decorate this class with injectable. So this is the first thing we need to do. If I want to create a service, make that class as an injectable class. That is, I'm making it eligible for dependency injection. Okay, so we have created that. Now I need to register this service. We need to register this service. So how to register the service means where you want to use it. I want to use it in the file called app.component.ts. So in the app.component.ts, to register the service, we have a metadata called providers. So in this providers, you can just simply specify calculator service as an array. The array, just provide this. So what we are doing here is we are just registering the service. So when I register the service, now it can be injected in this class, that is app component class, as well as the child components. Okay, so if I register the service in the app component, then it can be injected in that app component as well as its child components. So I have registered the service. So once I have registered the service, now we can inject it. That is, I should not write the code like this. Instead of that, it should be injected. To inject it, we need to just create public obj, which is of calculator service. This is the way to inject the service. Inject the service. So as soon as I inject it, look at this, I'm not creating any object. Calc obj equal to new calculator service. In Angular, we have the injector service. The injector service will just check, okay, is that this particular service has been registered? Yes, it is registered. So whenever I create a variable of this type, it will just see that, okay, we are supposed to create the instance for this, and it will create the instance and assign it to this variable. So we have injected the service. This is done with the help of Angular's dependency injection service. DI stands for dependency injection. So Angular is having its own dependency injections concept. So I can, if I want to register, if I want to create the dependency injection, it needs to be registered first. It can be registered in the component level or else to the application level. If I want to register in the component level, in the component, provide this providers metadata. If I want to register in the application level, go to app.module.ts. In the app.module.ts, just same thing, providers. So if you do that, then it will be registered throughout the application so that it can be used by any of the component. But if I register to the component level, that component and its child component can receive it. For instance, if I register the service in this component, only this component can take it. Whereas if I register it here, this component and this component can take it. Whereas if I register it here, all the nested components can take that. But whereas if I register it here, all the components can take it. That is module level if you declare it or register it. So simple logic, whenever you want to create a service, that service needs to be decorated with injectable. That's the first point. Then second is we need to register the service. If I want to use it in the component level, that component and its child component, register the service with the help of the providers. Okay, with the help of this provider metadata, we can register it. Once you register the service, then it can be injected with the help of Angular dependency injection. In the Angular dependency injection, any methods, let it be a constructor or it can be any method, you can provide that, but as a best practice, just do that in the constructor. To inject the service in the constructor, we need to provide it. In the constructor, just provide public followed by calc obj. Some people will say private. Don't do that. Always use public as a best practice. Okay, so why I need to provide this public? If I'm not providing it, then it won't be attached with this keyword. If it is not attached to this keyword, then you cannot use this in another method. In another method also I want to use it. You cannot access it. If I provide public, then it will be attached to this object, then you can access it with this dot calc obj. Okay, I hope you all understood this. So we can access it this dot calc obj, save it, refresh. Now you can see it's executing, but we have not created the instance.